Becca, we did it.
We did it. I am so happy that you were persistent in your pursuit for
Yeah,
this conversation. I told you over Instagram a couple weeks ago, but I recently passed on my Instagram account duties to a third party.
genius.
Um I just Unfortunately, there are times like with you and I that we had been in touch. I made this switch over and I said to the person handling it, I trust you. You will sift through the important things and not, and some stuff does get through the cracks. And I
Yeah.
think that I'm just so glad that our conversation could continue. But I at one point I was looking for something specifically in my DMs a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh, no, no.
Oh, you're the best. Don't worry. It happens. Seriously, it happens. And honestly, sometimes people go like ghost, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, everything was going into my requests and I wasn't even checking,
Yeah.
whatever it is. But, quite honestly, not to like pat my own back here, but like you found me and I was
Yes.
like, oh my God, Becca.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I know this isn't personal. Like I knew it wasn't personal. Like I'm not responding to her, but I've just wanted to share your story for so long. Because you've done such a service by sharing it, and I want to get it out there even more.
Well, back at you. The reason that I tracked you down and stalked you in the first place was because I felt like when I was going through my fertility stuff, the resources were overwhelming. I couldn't get on another like Reddit chain, or
Ugh.
I was gonna just, I mean,
Yeah.
can we even, I can't
Yeah.
believe it's still like the number one place where people talk fertility.
And the
And
thing
I
is, they'll
was
even say, they'll be like, I know this is a terrible idea, but I'm still going to do it. Okay. But then don't believe what you've actually searched just because you've decided it's okay to do. It's crazy.
It's insanity. So when I found you and the work that you were doing, the community where you were building, it's really impressive. And
You.
I'm not surprised that this podcast is now a hit and that you're just becoming such an authority in this space because you've been there and you have such a great touch with this. So
You're the best. Thank
thank you.
you. If I ever make a commercial for my company, it's going to open with that.
Oh, good.
You're the best. Thank you. So, okay, let's get into your story. You have a let's start with the happy ending, which is that you have a beautiful son,
I do.
and his
Yeah.
name's Ford.
His name is Ford. He just turned 2, which is blowing my mind. Isn't
Yes.
it so nuts? Every mother was like, every parent said,
Yeah.
it's gonna fly. Just don't blink. Blah blah blah.
Right.
And I was always like, shut up. It's going
Totally.
very slowly
Slowly,
right
yes.
now.
Well, it's like that old adage, the days are long, the years are short. I mean, it could not be more true.
Nothing's more
Um,
accurate.
yeah, it's just like you look back and all of a sudden you're like, how did we get like, how is my son reading the word smoke shop? This morning we had a whole conversation about what a smoke shop is. And
What is a
luckily,
smoke shop?
like in LA, I'm in LA,
Oh,
there's like a weed shop every corner and they're like smoke shop. And I'm like, okay, what do
oh,
I do? How do I answer this? And so I'm like, well, some people go in there and they buy things that smoke that are very unhealthy and they're not good for them. And my kids are like, why would they do that? Smoke shops are awful. And I'm like, I've perfectly brainwashed them. Like, this is the
there you
whole point
go.
of parenting. Anyway, never in my wildest, when I gave birth and was like going through all my infertility, was like, how am I going to explain to my kid what a smoke shop is? Right. All of a sudden, you're just like handling these things that you're not prepared for.
It's so true. It's so
Yeah.
true. I know we're not quite reading yet. Sorry, my dogs are barking, which means my child
No,
that
no
I speak
worries.
of is entering back into the home.
Oh,
Um, I'll hold so this isn't annoying for you.
it's all good. By the way, my
Uh,
kid's 5 and he's reading. He was not reading it anywhere near 2. So please, no pressure there.
it's so exciting. It's just
Yeah.
like, I feel like every expectation I had of what it was going to be like to be a mom, it's so different in the
Yeah.
good way, in the best way. And I think people scare you a lot into thinking it's going to be exhausting and overwhelming and the terrible twos and all those things are true, but I also believe when you go through such a struggle to get these little humans earthside,
Yeah.
I want to say the one silver lining is that I have a higher tolerance for the, pain in the ass moments that he has.
Yeah.
I have a little extra gratitude. I'm not saying people who have kids naturally and easily don't have gratitude. I'm just saying for me personally, I know the way that my brain works. And when I work harder for something and I finally get it, I do have greater appreciation for it.
Mm.
So I for that, I am grateful that it took a long time to get this terrible 2-year-old here.
Yeah. Now tell me, let's talk about that. How long did it take you?
Let's see. I started trying, I got pregnant very quickly the first time in 2018. That pregnancy did not continue, but after that, it was miscarriage after miscarriage. And then finally, my son was born in February of 2022. So 4 years,
Yeah.
or a little less than that.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah,
how quickly did you jump into treatment? Because I know getting pregnant was kind of easy. I hate saying easy, but it was easy for you.
yeah.
But you were having kind of late losses, right? Like
Yes.
post first trimester?
Yeah, I actually I've actually, I've never actually admitted this. I can't believe I'm about to do this. I had in my first pregnancy a chromosomal abnormality,
Okay.
and we did not find that out until 12 or 13 weeks into the pregnancy. And we chose to terminate just because the prognosis was not a good one. And so for the longest time, I told people that it was that we lost the pregnancy or that the pregnancy didn't continue. I was really careful with my words. And sometimes I would just say miscarriage because it's just easier for people to digest.
Mhm.
And also because I myself was going through the shame and grief and conflicting feelings about that choice. And now that I live in I live in Austin, Texas, where women don't have that choice anymore, I made the decision to stop glossing over or
Thank you.
withholding the whole truth.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, I just I never thought I would come. Oh, speak of the devil.
What timing, Ford?
I am working, buddy.
Hi,
Did you
Ford.
have fun at the park? You have a lollipop? Okay. Oh, from Gabby, you got a lollipop? Are you gonna go have your baba now? The baba you're not supposed to have at 2? I'll come when I'm done working, okay? I'll come when I'm done working, okay? I love you. Okay. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Go with Nana. I'll be right there. I normally have a different room that I'm doing this in, but my Ethernet is messed up.
It's all good. If we hear him, we hear him. It's really okay. Really, it's hilarious. The
We'll
timing of it
cut
though
all
was
this
like,
out.
whoa. Yeah, of course, of
I
course.
know, I know.
So cute.
This is a tough age to get them to do what you want.
Mm-hmm. Wish I could tell you it gets easier, but it doesn't.
Mm-mm. Yeah. You're gonna go play? Okay, have fun.
So cute.
Sorry
Is he
about
like,
that.
that's okay. Okay. So we were in the world of Texas. So
Yes.
I'm like, I also reduced from 3 to 2, which is also an abortion. Like I had an abortion while pregnant with my twins, who are now my twins.
Wow.
And I didn't ever think I would talk about that, but it was when Roe v. Wade became on the table again, was that year,
Hmm.
also 2018. And so we talk openly about it too, for the same reason that people don't think about all the needs that we all have as women to have those procedures done. And I'm so grateful that you're talking about it now. I feel like, how does the shame feel to you now? Do you feel more proud of it that like you were able to make that choice for yourself?
I feel, number one, so much gratitude that I was living in California, that I had a partner who supported the choice and we were aligned on it, that I have a family who didn't have any qualms about us making this decision for ourselves and our future family. I, you know, I'd like to say that I, you know, wavered in the decision, but I ultimately, the moment we found out that things were not healthy, I was really I was really set on the decision.
Mhm.
But it still wasn't an easy one. I just remember, and in my 20s, I terminated a pregnancy.
Mhm.
So I had these feelings of like going into my DNC of like I knew these nurses weren't judging me. I knew the doctors weren't judging me. I knew I would hope so, but I felt this like really icky feeling of I can't believe I've now had two abortions.
Mhm.
And um I wouldn't go back and change anything. That's
Yeah.
the other part. It's like I can hold these two truths where I had a lot of judgment for myself. I feared judgment of others. And then at the same time, I still would do it the same way again. Um, so it's complicated and it's weird, but at the end of the day, I'm just so grateful and so passionate about the fact that I was able to make that choice for myself. My life would be so different if at 23 or whatever I was, I had decided to have a baby with the guy I wasn't even in a relationship with. And
Right.
I found out the day that I was pregnant was the same day I got my first Broadway show.
Oh my God.
And I thought, this is something that I actually have to give up one to have the other. There wasn't a world that you can dance on Broadway. I mean, I think now it's a little easier and but I was in a bikini on Broadway,
Yeah.
So, and not to say you have to have that highest stakes to make the choice either.
Of
You could be
course.
23 and who cares?
Right.
Who cares? You're the one that holds that power and that agency, or you should be.
Right.
So again, it's like I wouldn't go back and change it, but I just hate having that scarlet letter, even though that's
Yeah.
not what the scarlet letter is, but whatever that is in modern day. But I'll continue to shout it from the rooftops because I'm fucking pissed. Can I say
Yeah.
fuck?
Yeah, girl. You
Okay,
say
good.
it all the time.
I'm fucking pissed. I'm
Yeah.
fucking pissed that there are people out there. It's not just men either. It's
Right.
mostly men, but there are also women out there who don't support
Hmm.
our for us to have agency over our own bodies and to make decisions and choices that are best for ourselves. So yeah, that's why I now I'm not going to say I had a miscarriage anymore.
Yeah.
So I did have another one
Yeah.
after later,
Yeah.
and it turns out that other miscarriage after I had that, this is a long way to answer your question. My doctor said, I think that the miscarriage happened for a similar reason, maybe to your first pregnancy, that your egg quality might not be exactly, exceptional. I was in my early to mid 30s at this point, and she said, if you want multiple children, which we did, she said, I would go talk to somebody about making some embryos because you can make the embryos, you can test them, and you never have to go through what you went through again with your first pregnancy. And so that's what I did. And I thank God that my doctor didn't have me continue to just keep trying and trying because a
Yes.
lot of doctors will. But she had seen the trauma we went through and she said, hey, there's a reason that science is so wonderful. And there's a reason that we have all of these amazing tricks and tips and techniques to get you your baby without having you suffer so much. Um, so that's what we did, and that process was during the pandemic. Actually, we made our
Mm.
embryos because
Were you
I
in
was like, what
California
else am I
still?
doing? We
Right.
were,
Right. You did the
and
most productive thing. Yeah.
thank God those embryos are in California too.
Yep. Yep. Seriously.
So not,
Mm.
fucking
Okay.
Alabama.
So you make embryos, and how did the process go for you? Like, how did IVF go for you?
So the egg retrieval and all that, because it was the pandemic and I wasn't having to juggle a lot of work stuff,
Hmm.
I felt like I was a little spoiled compared to a lot of women.
Hmm.
I also didn't have a baby yet. So I wasn't also tending to a little one and working and also giving myself shots, which I never did. My husband did all of them because I
Mhm.
couldn't bring myself to do it. I'm such a baby. That
Well, that, by
process
the way,
was,
that's more common than you think. A lot of women have their husbands do it. I'm so much a control freak. It never
did
occurred
you
to me
do
to
it?
have. I did all of mine. And I didn't even
Wow.
realize that some people don't do that until now that I'm talking about it with everybody. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess that could have been a smart idea. But I'm just like such a control freak. I was like, I probably would have been set it up and then been like, I can't have you do it. I have to do it myself. Anyway, I'm sorry to
Good for
interrupt. Go
you.
ahead. Yeah.
No, that's rock star. That is like rock star status. I was such a baby. And yes, so that process was actually okay. You know, the worst of it was just the bloating and the heaviness that you get towards the end. And then after the retrieval, you kind of fill up again with a lot of fluid. And I was just kind of uncomfortable. But again, it was the pandemic. I could lay around my house. I had very little to do. So I was so happy to have done it at that point. And we actually had a lot of luck, and our doctor was wonderful. And we ended up making some healthy embryos.
Great.
And that was very exciting. And I know it's not lost on me that we only ever did one retrieval because
Mhm.
that is not super common.
Mhm.
Um, but then when we went to transfer, I started the progestin shots,
Mhm.
and my body freaked the fuck out, for lack of
Mm.
a better term. It was like clockwork where I would give myself or not, my husband would give myself
Mhm.
give
Yeah.
me the shot in my
The
butt.
progesterone shot's no joke. That's a whole nother
Oh,
story. Yeah.
oh, that is something that we is not discussed enough. I don't think it's,
Yeah.
so that would go in at night. I would fall asleep, and like clockwork, within, I think it was 5 to 6 hours, I would wake up shaking, unable to stand up, and a crazy, crazy high fever.
Mm.
So they started to change you know how they come in a sesame oil,
Yes.
usually is mixed with it.
Right.
They gave me a bunch of different options. That said, maybe it's the oil that you're allergic
Right.
to, maybe it's whatever. We could not pinpoint what was going on. I continued to try and had the exact same thing happen. And my doctor, my transfer was scheduled, and he said, we really can't proceed because your body is clearly fighting something, and it's
Mm-hmm.
going to fight the embryo
Mm-hmm.
and you continue the progesterone till you're in your
10
second
weeks. Yeah.
trimester.
Mm-hmm. 12 weeks, 10 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So we stopped. And at this point, I was just done. I was
Yeah.
just so disappointed. And I said, I'm waving the white flag. I need a break. I don't know what. And because they couldn't really pinpoint exactly what was happening, I went on Reddit, as you do,
Wah,
and
wah.
wah wah. And some people, and we talked about the suppositories that you
Mm-hmm.
could do, but the success rate is not as high as the
Mm-hmm.
injection. And we also didn't know what would happen if that was the case. So
Mm-hmm.
I just said to my husband, I need a break. I feel like I'm never going to get the baby. I just need to have a second. And then I got an opportunity to leave LA in the middle of the pandemic and go to Vancouver to work on a TV show. But that meant, because of the pandemic, the border was totally closed. And they told me when I got this job, you and your husband you'll go to Vancouver. You'll quarantine for the 2 weeks where you literally are stuck in your apartment or wherever you're staying for 2 weeks. They check on you. It was very hardcore at that time. And we will not you will not be allowed to go back and forth over the border. And I was going to be shooting this show for over 6 months or 6-ish months in
Mm.
Vancouver. And a part of me got that job and the opportunity, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be separated from my embryos for 6 months. I can't go back to California and do a transfer. I can't. This is just a forced vacation from talking, thinking, anything fertility. And I also still wasn't able to really get answers. And this whole time I was doing all this research, talking to experts. And since then, I've gotten a little bit more clarity on my situation. But we go to Vancouver, and I said to my husband, I had been talking to a friend of mine who works in the space, who ended up being the agent. He owns the agency that we found our surrogate through. And I was just talking to him because he had hooked me up with the fertility doctor, and I just really trusted him. And he said, "What do you think about surrogacy? To me, you sound like you're waving your white flag, you've hit your limit, and you're not that there was a fear that I was getting older, but I had that. I was very aware of the fact that I was creeping into my late 30s. I didn't have the baby yet, and I thought all my life that at this point I'd have the two kids.
Mhm.
Um, and so I started to talk to my husband, which was, I'll be totally honest, we had, weeks and maybe months of going back and forth, and me just being desperate for him to join me in this decision, and support the decision. And he's wonderful. But I think part of him, when I said, this is what I want to do, I want to go the surrogacy route because I don't know the solution and I don't want to wait and I don't want to put my body through anymore. And he ultimately, he was like, I had to grieve my dreams of having my partner be pregnant and see my partner deliver this baby and
Mm.
have those sweet moments that you kind of dream of. And I think people forget that little boys also have fantasies of having families and pregnant wives and all those really fairy tale moments. And so he just eventually came to that, he was able to express that to me. And I
Which is
think at that,
amazing.
it's amazing.
Amazing.
It was it was such a beautiful moment in our marriage because I was, rightfully so, I became very selfish because I felt like this is happening to me physically. I'm the one being injected. I'm the one being feeling crazy. Meanwhile, also to go back on it, the estrogen that they give you,
Hmm.
I was certifiably insane.
Hmm.
I have never been closer to literally striking a match and setting my life on fire than
Hmm.
I was on estrogen. It
Hmm.
is fucking
Yeah.
crazy. And that I also wasn't prepared for. So I had all of this trauma associated with the experience. And I was very selfishly like, this is my body, this is my choice.
Hmm.
And I finally got my head out of my own ass and acknowledged to him that I was really sorry that he also had to say goodbye to something. And the first pregnancy was fucking horrible for both of us. It's like you get the pregnancy test. I filmed him opening the clear blue pregnancy test, like so naive and so hopeful. And we had this like beautiful couple weeks of being pregnant and expecting parents, and it all came just like crashing down with all of these, the blood tests and then the CVS and all the
Hmm.
things to confirm that what our biggest fear about the pregnancy. So I also didn't take that into consideration, that he also was really, really heartbroken from that too. Um, but the time we spent in Vancouver together was so important because we really communicated to each other and really honored feelings of that each one of us had. And ultimately, he said, I just want the baby. I don't fucking care how it gets here. So that was a really amazing moment for us. And then from that point on, I have to give him credit. Even if he felt feelings of, this is weird, this is unconventional, he never expressed it. He was 100% in. And it was really, I feel really grateful because I know that that's not always the case with men and women,
Hmm.
especially in this situation.
So many things here. So I'm just like in awe of him because it is so, I think a lot of men actually default to the opposite of, I'm not allowed to have these feelings because she's the one going through so much. And if that's what she wants, I have to just deal with it.
Hmm.
Which isn't necessarily horrible, but also it is. um, the fact that he was able to articulate that is really incredible and honestly pretty unheard of.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what you think. Like because I deal even in my business, I do couples sometimes, but mostly it's the woman that comes to me. And I just wish there were a better outlet for men to talk about this because look, therapy is hard enough for a lot of guys to go with
Hmm.
somebody who might not be going through what they're going through, but to be able to open up to someone that really understands how they're feeling, like who was he leaning on? Or who maybe didn't even understand what he was going through, but like who was he able to lean on in that time?
He has an amazing family. he has two older sisters, which I also think are the reason he's such a wonderful husband. He
Yes.
has the two older sisters, and I think that's like a recipe usually for a great
Yes.
man.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked a lot to them. Um, our goddaughter is a result of a surrogacy and a surrogate. It's a same-sex couple who
Mm-hmm.
we're probably the first people in our lives that used a surrogate, and that we were able to kind of watch that process and see how beautiful that whole exchange is. So that helped a lot. Our two best friends, they were really wonderful, especially once we got into the process of the surrogacy. We could call them at any point. But yeah, I mean, it's like most of his friends did it the old fashioned way,
Yeah.
because they started younger and they didn't have that one, hurdle in their marriages. And um, we talk to each other a lot. And I think that that's important. But I agree with you. It's really hard and really not normal for men to have that support system in place while they're
Yeah.
going through it. So a lot of the time, one of my best friends is going through it right this second,
Mm.
and it's so hard. It's so heartbreaking. And, there was a moment where she had a positive pregnancy test after an IVF a transfer of an embryo. It was the first one after many failed. And her blood work came back great. Everyone was so happy. It was like the first time they had a win. And then 2 days later, when you go to get your blood work done, the numbers didn't double. You know the drill. But they said, this isn't definitive. In 2 more days, you come back and we'll see. So it's like people don't realize that so much of the infertility is in limbo. It's
Yes.
so much of it is just like, I can't be happy. I can't be sad. I just have to live in this like hopeful place until it's not.
Mm-hmm.
So she got the blood work back, and she and her husband, she was just at this point after so many years of struggle, was like, I'm not optimistic. I'm fucking pissed. I'm devastated. I just know in my guts that this is just not going to be it. I just know it, and I'm so fucking done. And her husband was please
Yeah.
try to be positive and try. And I know his intentions were simply to say like, it's not over till it's over.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't know that the quote right thing to do in that moment is to defer to the person who's really physically gone through it.
Yes.
And I think that like they'll always trump I think they'll always kind of trump the conversation, or like ultimately, and as they should, the women that are going through it physically. Oh, sorry.
Okay. I don't hear it.
You don't? Oh
No.
God. Okay.
Yeah. No, you're good.
Um,
Still no.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Good
I
headphones.
think my opinion is I do think that the person who's physically and due to hormones, especially
Mm-hmm.
emotionally experiencing it, should be deferred to most of the time. But that's not to say that the partner who's not should be completely ignored or dismissed.
Yeah.
So it's a hard balance.
It's a hard balance. And I just remember with my husband being like, you need to talk to somebody about this. That's not me, you know?
Yeah.
And it's very hard to find that team of support for the men. And in this particular situation, this was very common in my pattern where I would be like, I'm telling you, my gut is that this is not working out.
Yeah.
My husband would be like, please don't even say it out loud. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's so much pressure. Like if I think it's not going to work, this is what we've done to ourselves with like the world of positive thinking that, right. If I put it out there that it might not be the one, he would be like, I can't believe you would say that. You're going to make it not be the one, which for anybody listening going through this, we all know is not true. You are not,
No.
look, positive thoughts are wonderful. I want you to think it's going to work out. But if you don't think it's going to, that's not going to make it work out or not work out. Like think about how many women don't want to be pregnant who are and who are like,
Exactly.
please don't be pregnant, please don't be pregnant. And then they are, right? So
Yep.
obviously your thoughts don't dictate whether you're going to carry a pregnancy or not, but that pressure is a very common dynamic between the man and the woman because also the man thinks he's supposed to keep being the cheerleader and rah, rah, rah. When in reality, like what I love about Zach is he just acknowledged what he was feeling. And that is really hard sometimes. So props to him for that.
Yeah, he's pretty great.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about when you decide you're going to move over to surrogacy officially. Zach gets on board. Tell me what you felt. Were you like relieved, excited? What did you feel?
Honestly, I was relieved. I just felt in my guts that this was the right choice. And I don't know. I was excited. And I also trusted my friend so much who, owned this surrogacy and egg donation agency. And they held our hand through the whole process. And while we were in Vancouver, we had a Zoom with a potential surrogate and her partner. And I just remember saying to Zach, go about to get on the Zoom. And I said to him, listen, you're amazing and you have been so supportive. I want you to feel free enough to express how you feel about this meeting afterward. Because this doesn't have to be our person. We can keep looking. They're so wonderful at giving you, options. And um, so we get on the Zoom and we had a lovely conversation. And then we ended it. And I was feeling like I just knew this was the person. And I just was hopeful that Zach would feel the same. And we got off and Zach thought, and I said to Zach, I said, what do you think? And he was like, I think she's amazing. I think that this feels right, or whatever it was. And
Mm-hmm.
so we were really lucky. The first potential surrogate that we met with ended up being the one that we
Amazing.
used. And yeah, it was awesome. And then the whole process, like I do get a lot of DMs asking me, how did we start the process? Where do you turn? And this agency, it's called Elevate, and they-
Shit, do you hear me? Pause real quick. Pause real quick because I think it's my Wi-Fi. Are you there? Are you there? Shit. Are you back?
yes,
Oh my God, I think that was my internet. So sorry. Take it
no, it's
from
okay.
they're called Elevate.
Yeah. So the agency that we use, it's called Elevate, and they have a side that does egg donors, and then they have a side that does surrogacy. And it's two men, they're a couple that own it, and they started it because they felt like it was kind of the places that they were looking personally, because they wanted to start their family. The places that they had been looking at felt a little bit antiquated, a little bit nothing catered to same-sex couples, and they don't just specialize in same-sex couples. But it's just a more modern take on the whole process. Like, for instance, our case managers, they're filled with women who have been surrogates, other intended parents who became parents through them, other surrogates, social workers. So they
Mm,
have this support system that knows exactly what you're going through, and you're not just dealing with some random person who's kind of never been through the process. So that was really beautiful. And I also felt like, you know, I kept hearing, which made me so angry when I would talk to people about the surrogacy journey that we were on. A lot of people's response was, oh, it's very Handmaid's Tale. And I was like, well, how
mm.
ignorant can you be? Um,
Seriously.
but it happened more often than I'd like to say. And so to me, I was really aware of the fact that I needed to go somewhere where the surrogates are advocated for and supported in the most beautiful way. And this is what I think Elevate does best. They have support groups, they have people, employees who have been surrogates. The person who I dealt with on a day-to-day basis was a surrogate.
Mhm.
So it was, the advocacy for these women was unmatched. And so it just felt like this was a beautiful exchange of a woman who was willing to give us the greatest gift of our lives And in return, we could financially support her and her family at the same time. So
Mm.
it was wonderful. It was beautiful. I'm not saying it's all easy peasy. You start to panic when you go through, not panic, that's dramatic, but you start to get a little anxious when you go through the legal process and the contracts. And, we had to have a conversation with our surrogate about termination.
Termination. Mm.
And some surrogates are extremely religious. And, that's why this is also wonderful. The agency makes sure that you're both very aligned.
Mm.
So, we didn't have any religious constraints, and we're not religious people. So to us, it was important, especially since we'd gone through what we went through, to have a surrogate that was on board to terminate if, in fact, something was wrong with the embryo.
Mm-hmm.
So, or the fetus.
Yeah.
So those moments you get nervous and just you have to go to worst case scenario because I'm the daughter of two lawyers
Mm-hmm.
and but I will say I
Mm.
never a part of me, people are always saying, were you afraid she'd try to keep the baby? I'm like, this is not a Lifetime movie. First of
Totally.
all, this woman doesn't want my baby. This
Right.
woman has babies of her own at home. She's happy with her family. She is more than stable. She's way more stable than I am even.
Mm-hmm.
The psychological evaluation that these women have to pass
Yes.
through is it's crazy. So many women can't become surrogates because it's
Right.
so incredibly intense and difficult to be approved to be one. So, I never had those fears, but I just had the like normal things that I probably would have felt if I were carrying too.
Right. I think I hear a lot of the women who use surrogates say they are afraid that's going to be the one time the embryo doesn't survive the thaw, right? Like you've gotten your emotional state ready and you've gotten someone else's physical state ready. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden, right? Like you've never had that issue and that's going to be the one issue. I would have been a hot mess. So,
Yeah.
also, like I mentioned, I'm a control freak. Like it's very hard to surrender in those moments, and you kind of have to.
Yeah.
So, give me location wise. You guys had left Vancouver. Where was your surrogate?
Our surrogate was in Texas, and
Amazing.
we knew we were moving to Austin after Vancouver. So we got lucky. It is not super common. They try, if you happen to match with somebody and the location is the same state that you live in, it's wonderful, but sometimes you just don't. Our best friends, they live in California and their babies were born in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, we went back to Austin. We met in person with our surrogate and again, it was really wonderful. And then she flew out to San Diego to get her kind of medical clearance done with our fertility clinic. And then it was quick. She was able to start the meds and go through the process and go back, a couple weeks later to do the transfer. But I don't know. For some reason, I wasn't nervous about the transfer taking. I
Mm.
just sort of knew that I don't know. I just knew that this woman was going to be a million times better than she'd been proven to. She had had beautiful pregnancies and wonderful deliveries and she loves being pregnant. And I just thought, what a gift that my baby can be in a vessel, in a woman who is so happy while pregnant. I mean, that's the other thing that I didn't touch on was the second pregnancy. I had the worst depression of my entire life.
Mhm.
Um, that was, I don't know if I'm sure it had to do with the previous pregnancy. I don't, and I also think that women just the hormones and all the things that happen to your body. Some women get deeply, deeply depressed while pregnant. And like you think, I'm supposed to be so happy. I'm supposed to be glowing. I'm supposed to be whatever. It was very, 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 very dark. And that was another fear of mine going into carrying because I talked to my psychiatrist who specializes in, mostly women going through fertility, pregnancy, postpartum.
Mhm.
And she said, observing you now, I would say you would need to be medicated to continue on, or, if you plan on doing this again, um, because it's very scary. It's very scary to be in that place. And so, anyways, after experiencing that and meeting this woman who had been very happy to be pregnant and loves being pregnant. I mean, I had lunch with her the other day and she said, I can't wait to be pregnant again.
Oh my God.
I'm like, you're a
Wow.
unicorn.
Yes.
Um, I just felt really calm in all of those, in every doctor's appointment and all of the, after she got pregnant. And I just felt so grateful that there's this woman who is going to her kids' baseball games and having lunches with friends in her bowling league. And she's just living life and enjoying life. And I thought, like, how lucky is this little boy that
Mm.
the very first, whatever that is so positive.
Hotel. It's a hotel. It's a
It's
very
a hotel.
luxurious hotel. Yes.
Very luxurious. Very, very expensive and luxurious.
Yes. I
Yeah.
love that. Talk to me about, as an actress, what this was like to go through, because I think also physically, I think a lot of the, oh, it's so Handmaid's Tale comments are because there is this stigma of like rent a uterus so you don't have to gain the weight, right? Which is so deeply faulted and wrong and judgmental. And like, even if you do it for that reason, that's your choice.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what it was like when were you working when your losses happened? And like, were you nervous about what this was going to do career wise?
I we had the Lady Gang TV show on E when I was first pregnant. My very first pregnancy, well, not my very first pregnancy, my very first intended pregnancy,
Yes.
was when we were doing Lady Gang TV. And I remember being so excited and I felt like I wasn't scared of what it would do to my career. I felt really ready, and the timing was quote right. And I was excited to be pregnant on the show
Yeah.
because what's crazy is that they did all these focus groups when we did Lady Gang TV. And a lot of the people from the focus groups said they couldn't relate to any of us because we were women in our 30s and none of us had children. Yeah. So that's fun. And
Wow.
yeah, so I was excited to, I didn't give a fuck about those people, but I
Of
was excited.
course, but you just knew you would connect with like a whole different set of people.
Totally. And we
Yeah.
had Lady Gang people in the Lady Gang community who so many were mothers. And I couldn't wait to join that club with them and go through this with them. And so that was really hard. And I had to go through a lot of the unknown, like the limbo that I talked about during the shooting of that show, because it was all these like benchmarks and just finding out one bad thing after the other and not feeling like I could tell anybody. But finally, I had to tell our executives what was going on because I had to cancel, a couple really important trips to New York because of this, ultimately the termination and all that.
Did your
So
co-hosts know? Did your girls know?
they they didn't know that I was pregnant. I was waiting. And then by the time I was going to tell them I was pregnant was when we had done the blood work that said we're showing markers that things are
Hmm.
not normal. So I didn't tell them until, I believe it was until we made the decision to terminate, and
Mm,
that was pretty awful. I don't even really remember. All I know is that I have two of the most supportive business partners
yes.
ever. Um, but yeah, the thing that you were saying with people who are so judgmental about, Kim Kardashian, she just didn't want to gain weight and blah 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 blah. And the ignorance that's there is so crazy because at the end of the day, if you were to grant me a wish, if you were to genie in a bottle and you were to say, would you change anything about, if you could, what would you like? And I would say, I wish I could have carried my child. I wish I could have breastfed my child. I wish I could have had a happy, healthy, textbook, beautiful fairy tale pregnancy. I would never have jumped from zero to surrogacy. There's just no world for me. I still grieve every time I think about not having breastfed my child. I still have sadness associated with not knowing what it was like to carry him in my body. But I also think that whatever your choice is, it's your choice. I have a friend who has had a lifetime of eating disorders and struggling and like really, up and down and in being in institutions and and all she wants is to have a healthy relationship with her body. She's married. They talked about kids, and she looked at her husband and said, I am not strong enough emotionally, and I don't think physically, to carry a child. And
Mm.
I would like to discuss surrogacy. And that's okay. And it doesn't even have to be that extreme. I think that the myth here is that somehow these beautiful women who decide that they want to carry a child for another person, that somehow they're getting the short end of the stick. And don't get me wrong, I am sure there are women who go through the process and have struggles and maybe even regret doing it. But I don't think that's the norm. And both people engage in this relationship willingly, enthusiastically, and it's a really healthy thing. And so who are you to say that, some surrogate should only do it when a woman physically has been proven it's done, you can't 100% black and white carry a baby.
Mm.
There's a lot of surrogates out there who don't give a fuck what your decision is or
Mm.
why you're making it. They're grateful to do this and provide for their family as well.
Mhm. That's
So,
what's so incredible I find about surrogates and gestational carriers is like there is something in them that wants to do this.
mhm,
Money aside, of course, the money helps and it's a beautiful exchange of energy, right? But
mm,
I had a gestational carrier on last week, and she was like, I knew before starting my own family that if my pregnancies went easy, I would want to give that gift to somebody. I mean, you have to be an angel in life to just innately think about that, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. They're
Wow. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, they're amazing people. And I have, my best friend from childhood was a woman. I also was really glad that I had this experience. She loved being pregnant. She loved delivering her babies. There was not a single part of the process, two times with two babies, that she didn't have bliss. And so that was also why I believed it at face value when, you know, I had the conversation with our surrogate and she said, I love being pregnant. I believed it. And she did. I mean, she was wonderful the whole way through. So, um, yeah, I'm glad that I had that because as you become more aware of other friends and women's pregnancies, you find out that they're not always smooth sailing. And most of the time, they're not.
Yes. And most of the time, what I have found is that no one is that happy pregnant, right? Like the bliss part of it that we hear about all the time and like my body is a temple and I'm going to treat it perfectly, it's very rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true.
So you have these embryos still in California.
Hmm.
Do you think about them? Mhm.
Every time that charge comes up on my credit card.
Yep. Monthly. Are we on monthly, quarterly, annual?
Yes, I do. I'm reminded of them. It's actually kind of nice when I do see that. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
My
there they are.
kids. Yeah, my kids are living in Cali.
Yep. We're really we love having a child and we do want more. So I don't know timing wise when that's going to be. And that's another reason that I'm so happy we froze embryos
Yeah.
because we have time on our side at this point. Um, so yeah, if we're lucky enough to go through the process again, we will jump at the opportunity. And yeah, it's so funny. Like everyone will give you their opinion on how the age difference and all that stuff, gender, blah, 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 blah. But I think that when you've gone through what we've been through, I really don't believe there's a magical formula for
Mm.
any of it. So it is what it is, and the timing will be what it is. And I'll just be again so happy. And I was even in the last couple years, I had to do a lot of work with myself to see if I wanted to attempt again to physically carry. I had a lot of conversations. I found some great resources. And because I also wanted to continue, you know, I knew a lot of the decision to move forward the way that we did had a lot to do with the trauma of what happened before. And I wanted to explore the further out from the trauma that I was, would I feel differently? And let's just go down this path and see where it leads me. And where it led me was really back to the decision that I made to have my son with.
Mm.
I feel like it's the right thing and I'm happy, but I am happy that I honored those lingering feelings
Mhm.
because I don't want to have regrets. And like I said, as hard as it is at times to think about, you know, on my deathbed, not knowing what it's like to carry a baby to term and deliver a baby, um, that's okay. You know, I said to my co-host, who's actually having a hysterectomy next week,
Mm.
who never wanted children, who really knew her whole adult life, and even as a child, that she never wanted to have a child. She was like, there's this finality and this feeling of, I'm going to be ending my life never using my uterus to do the thing it was, quote, made to do. And I said to her, I was like, I have those moments with carrying a child as well. And I just say, in life, you don't get to ride every roller coaster. You know, you get a few rides and you get a few experiences, and you don't get guaranteed to get all the experiences, and that's okay.
I love that. And I usually ask people to wrap with a quote. So that's like the perfect way to wrap. You don't get
I
to
don't
ride
know
every
where the
roller.
roller coaster thing
I
came
love
from, but
it. Because often with my clients, I remind them like this roller coaster is not the rest of your life. And that
yeah,
is very hard to remember when you're in the depths of infertility.
yeah.
Becca, thank you so much.
Thank you so
You're
much.
amazing.
You are.
No, you. All right, we'll talk soon. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.